The Jordan Show on YouTube.
Okay, so remember that awful sound of dial-up?
Oh, yeah.
You know, that screeching.
Waiting forever.
And then, like, just to load some text, basically.
It's crazy how far we've come.
The internet's come a long way, that's for sure.
Long way.
And today, we're diving deep into the story of a company that I think helped shape the internet into what we know today.
Okay.
Netscape.
Netscape. I like it.
And I think when you hear that name, probably a lot of people think the browser. Right.
Okay.
But Netscape was so much more than just a browser.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a company,
Yeah.
a cultural phenomenon, I would say.
I agree.
And honestly, like a turning point in how we connect, how we do business, how we live online even.
Definitely.
So today, what we're going to do is really explore Netscape's founding, the people, the innovations, everything. And we're going to try to do it all through the lens of, the people who made it a reality. So
Sounds good.
buckle up.
All right.
This is going to be a wild ride through internet history.
Let's go.
So I think what was so captivating about Netscape was, they were building a browser, but it was more than that.
It was about making the internet accessible for everyone, not just, computer scientists and academics. It was really about bringing the web to the masses.
So this all started back like early 90s.
Yeah.
90s, and there was this, I guess, visionary,
Yeah.
you could call him,
I would say so.
Marc Andreessen.
Yes.
And he had already made Mosaic.
Mosaic.
And Mosaic was, this is a big deal, the first graphical web browser.
Imagine a world today where there's no images online. That's what it was like before Mosaic.
What would we even do?
It was all text, maybe a few basic formatting options. It was a very different internet.
Yeah.
And then Mosaic comes along and says, hey, we can display images. We can use HTML to structure pages, make them look good. Suddenly, the web becomes visual. It becomes engaging. It's a revolution.
Yeah. Before, the internet was really mostly using protocols like Gopher, I think.
Right.
It was just text-based.
Yeah. Very limited in what you could do.
So Mosaic's support for HTML images, that was huge.
Absolutely. Open up all these possibilities for web design, multimedia content, things we take for granted now, like embedding videos or having interactive elements on a page. All of that started to become possible with Mosaic.
And, so Andreessen, he wasn't content with just stopping at Mosaic.
Yeah.
Right. He had this vision of building an even better browser.
Right.
One that could really, bring the web to everyone.
See, that's all the potential.
Yeah. But to make this happen, he needed someone, with some real experience.
Someone who knew how to run a business.
Yeah. Someone with some serious business chops. And that's where Jim Clark comes in.
Jim Clark.
And he had founded Silicon Graphics.
That's right.
And Silicon Graphics was, a huge success.
They're pioneers in computer graphics.
And he had that experience that Andreessen needed to build a successful tech company.
He knew how to scale a business, build a team, raise capital, all those things that are essential for taking a product from a good idea to a global phenomenon. And that's what they did with Netscape.
So they team up, they create Netscape, and then their flagship product, Netscape Navigator.
Netscape Navigator, the browser that really brought the internet to the masses.
So what made Netscape Navigator so groundbreaking? It was improving on Mosaic, obviously, but what did it add that was so, new and different?
Well, they introduced a lot of features that we just take for granted today, like bookmarks, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Remember trying to navigate the web without bookmarks?
That sounds terrible.
Or they even had integrated email.
Oh, so that's like the kind of grandfather of webmail.
Yeah.
Like Gmail or Yahoo Mail.
Exactly.
That all came from kind of those early ideas.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of the key things, though, was compatibility.
Compatibility.
Netscape Navigator could run on different operating systems.
Okay.
You could use it on Windows. You could use it on Mac. Right.
Unix, you name it. And that was huge back then because, the internet wasn't as standardized as it is today.
Right.
So having a browser that could work seamlessly across different platforms, that was a game changer.
That makes sense.
It made the internet accessible to a much wider audience.
And it all happened so fast.
It did.
Right. Netscape was founded in 1994. And by 95, they were already making huge headlines with their IPO.
It was a whirlwind.
And this is where, things get really interesting, I think.
Absolutely, because Netscape's IPO in 1995 was a moment in time, a watershed moment, I think.
So, for people who don't know, what exactly is an IPO?
An IPO is an initial public offering. It's when a private company, like Netscape, decides to offer shares of its stock to the public for the very first time.
Okay.
And when they did this, they were valued at almost $3 billion.
That's crazy.
It was one of the biggest IPOs at the time.
Yeah?
And then, get this, the stock price, it more than doubled on the very first day of trading.
That was a signal. It was a signal to the world that the internet was here to stay and it was going to be big business.
Everyone wanted a piece of the pie.
Exactly. That was the starting pistol for the dot-com boom.
Everyone was trying to get online,
Yeah.
create a website, get their business on the internet.
It was a gold rush.
It was.
But of course, Netscape wasn't the only player in the game.
That's right. This is where we get the browser wars.
No, exactly.
Microsoft enters the scene with Internet Explorer.
Oh, yeah.
And things get really, really competitive, I'd say.
Oh, it was an intense rivalry.
Oh, yeah.
Both companies were pushing the boundaries, coming out with new features constantly. They were relentless. They had these aggressive marketing tactics. It was an all-out war.
Like billboards and TV ads.
Oh, yeah. Billboards, TV ads, radio spots. You couldn't escape it. They were everywhere. Remember those Netscape Now buttons?
Oh, yeah.
Those were iconic.
They were everywhere.
They were on every website. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of internet users.
Were there actual big differences between the browsers, or was it just hype?
Oh, there were definitely significant differences.
Oh, right.
Both browsers introduced features that we still use today. Netscape, they were pioneers. They introduced things like JavaScript, which made websites much more interactive. You could have animations, dynamic content, all sorts of cool stuff.
Okay.
While Internet Explorer, on the other hand, they focused on tighter integration with the Windows operating system, which, at the time, Windows was dominant on the desktop.
Right.
So that gave them a significant advantage.
So ultimately, who won the browser wars?
Well, if you look purely at market share, Microsoft ultimately won.
Yeah, okay.
They leveraged their control of Windows and they started bundling Internet Explorer with every computer.
Right.
So for a lot of people, Internet Explorer became the default.
It was just there.
It was just there, you didn't even have to think about it, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Because Netscape, they made a decision that proved to be incredibly significant, even though they might not have realized it at the time.
What was that?
They decided to open source their browser's code.
What does that mean, open source?
It means that they made the source code of their browser, essentially the blueprint of how it was built, freely available for anyone to use, modify, and distribute.
Okay.
So anyone could take that code, build upon it, improve it, create their own versions, and that's exactly what happened. That open source code became the foundation for the Mozilla project.
Mozilla.
Yes.
Mozilla Firefox, like the browser.
Yes. Firefox, which we know and love today, its roots are directly in Netscape's decision to go open source.
So even though Netscape maybe didn't win the browser wars in terms of market share and dominance, their legacy still lived on
Exactly.
through open source.
And Firefox has always been a champion for user privacy, for open source principles, and that's a direct consequence of Netscape's legacy.
So that's super interesting. I mean, people today browsing the internet, they might not even know what Netscape is, much less remember using it.
Yeah, that's true. But here's the thing. Even if you didn't experience the Netscape era, you're still interacting with its legacy every time you go online.
How so?
Because their focus on user experience, the innovative features they introduce, their commitment to open source, all of that has shaped the internet as we know it.
Oh, okay.
It's the foundation.
It's amazing, isn't it? How decisions made by a small group of people back in the 90s can have such a lasting impact.
It's true.
And speaking of lasting impact, we can't forget about cookies.
Oh.
That was a Netscape innovation.
Yes, absolutely.
Lou Montulli, he's the engineer behind that.
That's right.
So what was the story there?
Well, Montulli, he was trying to solve a problem. Back then, websites had no way to remember you from one visit to the next.
Oh, yeah.
So every time you visited a website, it was like starting over. You had to log in again, set your preferences again, and it was a bit of a pain.
Yeah, sounds annoying.
So he came up with cookies.
So remind me, what's a cookie exactly?
A cookie is basically a tiny file
Okay.
that a website stores on your computer.
Okay.
And in that file, it can remember information about you. It can remember your preferences, like what language you prefer, or if you want the dark mode on.
Right.
Or it can remember things like what's in your shopping cart.
Right, so you don't lose it if you leave the site.
Exactly. It's designed to make the web experience more seamless.
And that sounds super convenient, but now, we think about all the implications.
Right.
Like cookies, They kind of paved the way for targeted advertising, e-commerce, the whole like data collection,
Yes, exactly.
user profiling, all that stuff we kind of wrestle with today. It really started with this pretty simple idea.
And it's a great example of how a seemingly small technical innovation can have these profound ripple effects. It's not just shaping how we use technology.
Right.
It's shaping the broader social and economic landscape.
It makes you wonder, like, did Lou Montilli, did he foresee any of this? Like the good, the bad? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question.
It's a good one to ponder.
It is.
So what can we, I guess, take away from all of this? I mean, yeah, Netscape may not be like a household name anymore.
No.
But their influence on the internet, how we use it, I mean, it's pretty undeniable.
It's huge.
They opened the door to the internet for millions of people.
Yeah.
They helped spark the dot-com boom, and they really helped shape the digital world that we live in today.
I mean, thanks to Netscape, we have access to information, like at our fingertips.
Instantly.
We can connect with people across the globe.
We can buy groceries in our pajamas.
Exactly.
So, as you're kind of navigating this digital world today, I think it's worth remembering the legacy of Netscape,
I think so too.
the innovations that they brought, both good and, maybe some not so good,
Right.
some unintended consequences,
Yeah.
but all part of the story.
All part of the story.
I think next time you're clearing your cookies, maybe just pause for a second.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, are you just deleting data? Or are you erasing a tiny piece of internet history?
I like that.
I do too.
All right. Well, that was a fascinating deep dive.
It really was.
Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening.
See you next time.